excellent.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever walked into a room and you just immediately felt like you didn't belong there? Like someone made a mistake by just letting you in. You look around and you think, well, these people are smarter than me. They're more qualified than I am. They're more experienced than I am. And even though you've worked hard, even though you've earned your seat at the table, there's this quiet fear that's just sitting in the back of your mind saying, what if they find out I don't actually know what I'm doing? Maybe you felt like it after getting a promotion, or after launching something new, or stepping into a new position that you've prayed for, that you've worked for, maybe that you've dreamed about. But the moment it became a reality, you were overcome with doubt and you were overcome with insecurity. But here's the confusing part. From the outside, you still look confident. Your life looks like it's successful. People respect you, people listen to you, and they even trust you. But on the inside, you're still thinking, if they really knew me, if they really knew how unsure I am, they wouldn't see me the same way. This is called imposter syndrome, and at least 70% of us, we experience it. Imposter syndrome is paralyzing for many people because instead of stepping out or stepping forward, it causes people to hesitate. Instead of saying yes, it causes you to overthink things. Instead of speaking up, it just causes you to stay silent. You miss out because your feelings lie to you and tell you that you're not good enough. And here's what's so heartbreaking about it. You don't fail because you don't have the ability to actually do it. You fail because you never fully step into who you can be. You live a smaller life than you were meant to live, all because you feel like a fake. So today we're talking about that very feeling, the one that convinces incredibly capable people to play it safe, the one that whispers, you're not enough, the one that silently keeps people stuck year after year. Even the most successful people in the world wrestle with imposter syndrome, but the difference is that they have learned to master it. And today, I want to help you do the exact same thing. So welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Well, that's excellent.
Well, thank you again for joining me for another episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. If this brings value to your life, hit like so YouTube will know about it, subscribe so you can join the conversation, and share it with a friend so that they can join us. And of course, if you're listening for wherever you get your favorite podcast, please leave a review. This helps me add as much value to as many people as possible. So let's talk about what imposter syndrome actually is. Imposter syndrome is this belief that your success is undeserved, that somehow you're fooling people, that sooner or later someone is going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, we made a mistake. You don't actually belong here. And what makes this so tricky is that imposter syndrome doesn't show up as a fear. It shows up as logic. It really sounds reasonable in your mind. It sounds responsible. Sometimes it can even sound humble. You tell yourself, well, I'm just being realistic, or I don't want to get ahead of myself, or hey, I still have a lot to learn. But underneath all of that, is a deeper belief, the belief that says I'm not enough, or I'm not good enough. And as I've already mentioned, psychologists estimate that up to 70% of people experience imposter syndrome, at least at some point in their lives. And surprisingly, it shows up most often in high performers. These are people that you wouldn't think were struggling with their internal belief if they are good enough or not, if they deserve it or if they don't. These are people who care. These are people who want to do things and they want to do them well. These are people who actually push themselves to be successful. So that's why this isn't a motivation problem. Your issue is not that you lack drive. We're not talking about a lack of discipline here. We're not even talking about a lack of talent. What you lack is personal permission. You lack permission to believe that you belong where you are. And the reason is because imposter syndrome, it takes that permission away. And here's why imposter syndrome is so dangerous. It doesn't cause this dramatic failure in your life. You don't crash and burn. You just stall out. You stop raising your hand and volunteering to take that next opportunity. You stop applying for the promotion. You stop sharing your ideas. You stop going after whatever that dream is, whatever that desire is, that thing that you actually want. And it's not because you can't do it. It's because you don't trust yourself to do it. Imposter syndrome convinces you to just wait. Wait until you feel more confident. Wait until you feel more qualified. Wait until you feel more ready. And the reality is this: that moment rarely comes. Rarely do you feel ready. And this is the painful truth. Waiting, it causes you to miss. It causes you to miss out. Someone else, even less qualified than you, even less prepared than you are, that person is going to step into the opportunity that belonged to you, the opportunity that you talked yourself out of. And that's not because they're better. It's not because they're more qualified. It's not because they're more talented. It's just because they were willing. Imposter syndrome, it doesn't steal your ability. It steals your courage. And over time, that adds up. That equals a career that never quite takes off. It never quite gets the momentum that you thought that it would get. It's a dream that just stays a dream. It stays an idea somewhere in the back of your mind and tucked in your heart. It's a calling that you feel so passionate about, like you were put on this planet to do, but it's left unexplored because you don't believe that you're good enough. And this is how people end up living beneath their potential. Have you ever looked at someone and just thought, they've got so much more in them. They've got more potential. They can do better than what they're doing. They can make a bigger difference. Even people that appear successful on the outside, many of those people are still untapped in their potential. So if you find yourself somehow relating to this, let me put you at ease. There are others that you know who experience this as well. Albert Einstein once said, "The exaggerated esteem in which my life work is held makes me very ill at ease. I feel compelled to think of myself as an involuntary swindler." Howard Schultz, the famous CEO of Starbucks, once said, "Very few people, whether you've been in that job before or not, get into the seat and believe today that they are now qualified to be the CEO. They're not going to tell you that, but it's true." Sheryl Sandberg, a Harvard grad and Facebook COO, she wrote in her book, Lean In, she said, "Every time I took a test, I was sure that it had gone badly. And every time I didn't embarrass myself or even excelled, I believed that I had fooled everyone yet again. One day soon, the jig would be up." And Tom Hanks once said, "No matter what we've done, there comes a point where you think, how did I get here? When are they going to discover that I am, in fact, a fraud and take everything away from me?" Now think about that. Let that sink in. These aren't amateurs. These are not beginners. These aren't people without credentials. These are the people at the highest levels of their success, the top of their industry. So what's the difference? What's the difference between who they are and they're feeling yet still finding success? See, they understand something that most people never do. Feeling like a fraud doesn't mean that you are one. It just means that you're still growing. I want to say that again. Feeling like a fraud. Listen, it doesn't mean that you are one. It just means you've still got growth to do. And all of us should still be growing. And that mindset, that reality, that's the shift that I want you to make this year. To stop letting your doubt decide your future. So I'm going to offer you 5 practical ways that you can do that. 5 practical ways that you can kill the self-doubt and the imposter syndrome that's in your life. Number 1, I want you to normalize the noise. Normalize the noise. We're going to start here because if you miss this one, everything else that we talk about, it's going to be harder. See, imposter syndrome is only noise, and noise is something you expect when you're moving. Think about that. When you're standing still, everything's quiet. But the moment you start moving forward, the wind picks up, the engine gets a little louder, things may rattle just a little bit, you're going to hear a little noise. And growth is no different. Growth is noisy. There's new responsibilities that create a little noise. New levels of influence creates a little noise. New seasons of leadership, it creates a little noise. And the noise that you hear that says you don't belong here, that's there not because something is wrong. It's there because something is changing. But most people assume that noise means danger. But in reality, that noise, that's often the confirmation that you need that says, hey, you're growing into something that matters. Psychologists even tell us that the imposter syndrome is most common in high achievers. People who care, people who are pushing themselves, people who are stretching beyond what they already know. We listed just a few of those a moment ago. So if they're experiencing it and they're walking through it, this is what I want you to challenge yourself to do. Instead of asking, why do I feel this way? Ask yourself, what am I growing into? It's not an indication that you don't have what it takes. It's not an indication that you're not good enough. It's just an indication that there's some growth that's coming out of you. So when you hear that noise, you need to go, oh, I've got some momentum. I've got some forward movement behind me. So don't panic every time that you hear a little bit of noise. Stop thinking something is wrong with you. Stop letting the feeling define your future. Remember that the people who grow the most aren't the ones who never hear the voice of doubt. They're the ones who learned not to obey it. So just normalize the noise. And then number two, here's something I want you to understand is you need facts over feelings. Facts over feelings. And this is important because once you normalize the noise, the next step is learning how to listen differently. Because when you recognize that little rattle, when you recognize that little wind that's blowing across, you know that something is different, but it's good. See, imposter syndrome feels convincing because it speaks in emotion, but it doesn't speak in evidence. Imposter syndrome says things like, well, I feel unqualified, or I feel behind everyone else. I feel like everyone else knows more than I know. That's that rattling noise that you're hearing. And the mistake that we make is assuming that when we hear that we feel it and it must be true. But feelings are not facts. We have to learn as leaders to lead our feelings and not let our feelings lead us. The hardest thing you will ever lead, the hardest person that you will ever lead is leading yourself, leading your feelings. So listen, your feelings that are lying to you, they're not facts, they're just reactions. Think about how often your feelings change just in a single day. Maybe you wake up in the morning and you feel confident, but by lunch, you're already doubting yourself. You're encouraged after a compliment from someone, after you had a moment where somebody noticed something you did, something they were proud of, but then you were deflated after a single piece of criticism that came your way in the very same day. See, if feelings were facts, the truth about you would change every few hours. So instead of asking, well, how do I feel about this? Start asking, what do I know to be true? So don't lean into the feelings, you're leaning into the facts. In other words, you have to learn again to lead your feelings. Here's the facts. You were hired for a reason. You were invited into that room to sit at that table, to be with those people for a reason. You've already learned things that you once thought were way beyond you. You've already accomplished things that you never thought that you would. But imposter syndrome, it just tells one story. But facts, they tell the best story. Here's a simple practice that I think can be helpful. When doubt shows up, I want you to write down 2 columns. You've heard things like this before, a comparison. I want you to do that with your feelings and your facts. On one side, write what you feel. And on the other side, write what you know to be true. Write those facts. I feel like I'm not ready, but I know that I've prepared. I feel like others have gone ahead of me, but I know that I've made progress. I feel like I'm faking it, but I know that I have earned this opportunity. opportunity. See, this step doesn't ask you to ignore your emotions, but it does ask you to discipline them. And once you start leading yourself with facts instead of feelings, there's a shift. Something changes. You'll notice that noise gets a little quieter and everything around you begins to grow. So lean into facts, not your feelings. And then number 3, record the receipts. Record the receipts. Once you start leading with facts instead of feelings, you need a way to hold on to those facts, because here's what most people don't realize. Imposter syndrome has very selective memory. Imposter syndrome forgets every win. It minimizes every success that you've had, and it explains away every compliment. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, they were just being nice. Oh, that wasn't what I would have done, or you could have done that better, or that wasn't even that hard to begin with. Anyone could have done that. So see, if you don't intentionally record your wins, well, your mind will quietly erase them. That's why you need this receipt system. This is a place where the evidence lives. For you, that may be a note that you keep on your phone. It may be a folder in your email or a journal that you keep on your desk. But whatever you do to record these wins, to put it down as a fact, you need to save the things like positive feedback from a client or a coworker, a project that you completed that maybe stretched you a little bit, a problem that you solved that, man, it was once intimidating. You thought you would never be able to do it, or a moment that just showed you that, hey, I could do this. I was tempted to bail, but I stuck with it and I did it. You were once intimidated, but you made your way through it. Record the things that, even if it feels small, it's a win, because a win is a win. Growth is built on small, faithful steps. So don't even let the little things rob you of the celebration. And then when doubt shows up and it tells you, oh, you're going to fail, you've never done this before, you can open that file and you can remind yourself of all the previous success that you've had. And that previous success will encourage you. It will equip you for what you need to do it again. And what's really powerful is that over time, you stop needing external reassurance from other people. You stop looking for validation. You actually start trusting your own track record. And this causes your confidence to grow. Your confidence grows when you remember who you were, but who you are now. When you can remember all the things that you've overcome, and you can remember how far that you have actually come, it's empowering to you to look back at what was and to stand in reality of what is. And when you remember things well, imposter syndrome, it loses one of its greatest weapons, and that's forgetfulness. And then number 4, I would encourage you to borrow some belief. There are certain times in your journey where you need to borrow a little belief for yourself. See, even when you normalize the noise, even when you separate feelings from the facts, even when you record the receipts, there will be moments when your confidence still runs a little low. And that's not me being negative, that's just reality. There's going to be moments where you find that your confidence has almost run out, because you're not always going to get it right every single time. And that's when that imposter syndrome will start making a little bit of noise. But confidence doesn't just work on its own. There are seasons where you need to borrow belief. And that means you allow trusted people to see what you can't see in yourself. Think about how often you believe in someone else in your own life more than they believe in their own self. You can see their potential. You see their growth. You know that they are ready for whatever that next challenge is. See, borrowing belief just means that you allow other people to do that for you. And we all need this. But let me bring some balance to this one. You have to be intentional about who you listen to. Not everyone gets a vote in your confidence. You need to borrow belief from people who actually know you, people who want what's best for you, people who will tell you the truth in order to build you up and not just tear you down. Sometimes you need to hear the tough things, and you want people who will challenge you and who will stretch you. And I can tell you, if you exercise this strategy, eventually the belief you borrowed becomes the belief that you own. See, what starts as external encouragement will actually become internal confidence because you have strong, trusted voices that have allowed you to borrow some belief so that you can make it through the imposter syndrome in your head. And then number 5, call over confidence. Call over confidence. For me personally, I think this is the most important strategy. This is the shift that changes everything. See, confidence is important, it's powerful, but it's also inconsistent. Some days it shows up really strong, other days it's just nowhere to be found. And that's why calling is so much more powerful than confidence, but they just work differently. Both are important, but have different functions. Confidence works based on how you feel, but your calling works on what you're meant to do. Your calling isn't rooted in emotion. It's rooted in purpose. Your calling says, this is why I'm on the planet. I may not feel qualified, but I know that I'm called. And here's an important truth to remember. Some of the most important steps you will take in your life will happen on days that you don't feel confident at all. But you'll take them anyway because you know that you were called to do it. And when you anchor your life to your calling, imposter syndrome loses its leverage. So as you head into 2026, as we get deeper into this year, I'm rooting for you to master your imposter syndrome. Remember, mastering it doesn't mean that imposter syndrome will totally disappear, but it will mean that you stop letting it decide. It will die because you stop letting it decide. It will go away because you took away its permission. So I want to encourage you to normalize the noise. Choose facts over feelings. Record the receipts. Borrow belief and walk in your calling. That's how you master imposter syndrome. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Mind Your Business podcast. If this episode was helpful, hit like so YouTube will know about it, subscribe so you can join the conversation, and hey, share it with a friend so that they can join us. And of course, if you're listening wherever you get your favorite podcast, please leave a review. So go, be bold, be brave, and follow your calling. And until next time, go and mind your business.